You've heard about the Mayflower and their landing at Plymouth Rock, but do you know if any of them were your relatives? You might be thinking, no way, like I did, but you could be carrying their DNA like millions of Americans and people around the world today. Many of them don't even know it. It's hard to understand how such an important piece of family history could be forgotten and lost so easily, but here we are. It wasn't until I started digging into my family's history that I discovered my own Mayflower roots, and it just made me wonder how many people living today are descendants of the Mayflower Passengers. Of course, we can't give a definitive answer to that question because so many lineages are still unconnected, but it is estimated that about 35 million people around the world today had at least one ancestor on the Mayflower. So, who were these pilgrim patriarchs? Well, we know that half of the Mayflower Passengers didn't survive the first cruel winter, but of the ones that survived, who has the most descendants living today? Let's break it down by focusing in on the passengers' families. This isn't just some boring history lesson. This is our history. We're going to name the passengers with the most descendants. James Chilton and his wife were the two oldest passengers, and they both died at Plymouth upon arrival, but history rewarded them with a remarkable legacy carried on by two of his daughters, Mary, who married John Winslow and raised a large family, and Isabel, who married Roger Chandler and came later. The Chilton lineage spread rapidly through colonial New England, intertwining with many other early settler families. James Chilton's granddaughter, Sarah Chandler, married Solomon Leonard. They were my 10th great-grandparents, and they probably have 100,000 other descendants living today. James Chilton has hundreds of thousands of living descendants. Famous descendants include Winston Churchill, Lucille Ball, Jim Morrison, Matthew Perry, Vincent Price, Steve Chapin, and Christopher Lloyd. Next up is a total legend of the Plymouth colony, William Bradford. You might know him as the colony's longtime governor, chronicler, and the author of Plymouth Plantation. But did you know his descendants are everywhere? The key wasn't just his sons. His daughters married into other families, multiplying lines. Take Mercy Bradford. She married Benjamin Vermaze, launching a Bradford Vermaze branch. Another daughter, Alice Bradford, married Reverend John Richards, then Major William Adams, creating more massive lines. He could have 1 million living descendants or more. Some famous descendants of William Bradford include Ulysses S. Grant, President William H. Taft, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Julia Child, Christopher Lloyd, and Humphrey Bogart. Another major Mayflower patriarch was John Alden. He wasn't even a passenger. He was hired as the ship's cooper and was planning to return to England, but stayed, a decision that reverberates through history. He married Priscilla Mullins, daughter of William Mullins, and they had 10 children who reached adulthood and at least 70 grandchildren. Genealogists estimate they have upwards of 1.5 million descendants living today. Famous descendants of John and Priscilla include President John Adams, President John Coolidge, Richard Sears, Orson Welles, and Julia Child. Another fruitful forefather is Elder William Brewster. A spiritual guide and community leader, his line is very well documented. Estimates place his living descendants somewhere around 1 million, probably more. His influence wasn't just spiritual, it was genetic. From Brewster came a sprawling family that dots the entire country. Some of his famous descendants include President Zachary Taylor, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, John Stetson, Samuel Colt, and Louis Comfort Tiffany. Next is Richard Warren. Unlike many others, he wasn't from the Leiden separatists. He was a London merchant. He sailed alone, leaving wife and children to follow later. Warren died only a few years after arriving, but Elizabeth and their 7 children, including 5 daughters, secured a vast legacy. Estimates range from at least 500,000 to over 1 million descendants living today. Their son Nathaniel had 12 children, and Joseph had at least 6. But between their 5 daughters, they had at least 39 grandchildren. Famous descendants include Ulysses S. Grant, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. Next up, John Howland. He famously fell off the Mayflower in a storm and grabbed a rope to survive. His survival changed history. He built one of the largest Pilgrim families. He and his wife, Elizabeth Tilley, had 10 children who all raised families. They have about 2 million descendants living today. Famous ones include George W. Bush, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, Humphrey Bogart, Alec Baldwin, and Christopher Lloyd. John came as a servant and apprentice to John Carver, who died in 1621, leaving no descendants. Next on the list is Stephen Hopkins, the man who survived a shipwreck off Bermuda in his first attempt to reach America. He had children from 2 marriages, including lines that spread early and widely. He appears in many documented descendant trees and probably has a couple million descendants living today too. Check out the video I made about his life on my channel. Edward Winslow, Isaac Allerton, Miles Standish, Francis Cook, John Tilley, Thomas Rogers, Dr. Edward Fuller, John Cook, Edward Doty, John Billington, Peter Brown, Moses Fletcher, and a few others. They all probably have hundreds of thousands of descendants living today. Anyone up for a family reunion? So, there you have it. The Mayflower Passengers with the most descendants alive today. From a tiny ship to millions of relatives through exponential growth. Be proud of your Mayflower ancestors. They left the comfort of their homes in Europe and England to start from scratch in a wild and unknown territory. They planted seeds that continue to impact the world today. Tell us about your Plymouth patriarchs in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more, and please help out by hitting the like button. Thanks for watching.